March 10th carries the feeling of momentum beginning to return after a period of reflection. For several weeks, Jupiter has been moving in retrograde motion. During retrograde phases, the type of growth Jupiter represents tends to turn inward. Instead of expanding outward through new opportunities or visible progress, the focus often shifts toward internal development. Beliefs are reconsidered. Priorities are examined. The mind reflects on what truly holds meaning. When Jupiter turns direct, that reflective phase begins to translate into forward movement again. This shift does not always appear suddenly. Often it feels like a gradual return of motivation. Ideas that once lived only in the mind may begin moving toward action. Perspectives that were forming internally may now influence decisions and behavior more clearly. Jupiter represents expansion, learning, and the search for meaning in experience. When it changes direction, the atmosphere around growth begins to change as well. You may notice a sense that certain questions you have been thinking about are no longer purely theoretical. The understanding you gained through reflection may now start guiding how you move forward. At the same time, Jupiter's presence in Cancer brings an emotional dimension to this process. Cancer is associated with personal security, emotional foundations, family connections, and the environments where we feel most supported. Growth under this influence often centers around creating a stronger sense of belonging or stability in life. Instead of pursuing expansion for its own sake, the focus becomes nurturing what truly supports emotional well-being. This can bring attention to the ways you build your inner and outer foundation. You may reflect on what environments allow you to grow comfortably, which relationships offer genuine support, and how your personal values shape the direction of your development. The shift of Jupiter moving forward encourages optimism, but it also encourages responsibility for the direction in which that optimism is applied. Expansion becomes meaningful when it aligns with what genuinely nourishes your life. The key psychological dynamic today is the movement from reflection toward application. You may feel that something you have been thinking about, learning about, or quietly understanding is ready to begin influencing your actions more directly. Growth is no longer only an internal process. It begins to move outward into the choices you make next. Now, let's move deeper into the psychology behind this shift. Jupiter represents the human desire to grow, to learn, and to search for meaning within experience. It governs the belief systems we develop about life, opportunity, and possibility. When Jupiter moves forward, that belief system begins expressing itself through action and direction. During a retrograde period, Jupiter tends to encourage internal expansion. Instead of chasing external opportunities, the mind reviews what it already believes. People often revisit their philosophies, reconsider long-term goals, or question whether certain ambitions still reflect who they are becoming. This internal process can sometimes feel slow or uncertain. Growth may be happening, but it is less visible because it is occurring through reflection rather than movement. When Jupiter turns direct, the internal insights gathered during that period begin seeking expression. Psychologically, this can feel like a renewed sense of purpose. Ideas that once felt abstract may now appear practical. Beliefs that were forming quietly in the background may begin guiding how you approach opportunities or decisions. The direction of Jupiter in Cancer adds another layer to this development. Cancer is associated with emotional safety, nurturing environments, and the desire to build something meaningful that supports both personal and collective well-being. Expansion in this sign often focuses less on external achievement alone and more on creating emotional stability that allows growth to continue over time. This means the forward movement of Jupiter may encourage you to reconsider what kind of progress actually matters. Is the direction you are pursuing emotionally sustainable? Does it strengthen your sense of belonging or personal security? Are your goals connected to what genuinely nurtures your life? These questions reflect Jupiter's deeper role as a teacher. Growth is not only about moving faster or reaching higher, it is also about aligning expansion with values that allow development to remain meaningful rather than exhausting. You may also notice that optimism begins to return in subtle ways. Situations that previously felt uncertain may begin to look more promising once the mind reconnects with a broader perspective. However, Jupiter's influence is most constructive when optimism remains balanced with awareness. Belief becomes powerful when it is supported by experience rather than detached from reality. The psychological lesson of this moment is integration. The insights gathered during reflection are now ready to shape forward movement. Instead of starting from the same place you were before, you begin moving forward with a deeper understanding of what you are actually building and why it matters. Now, bring this shift down into everyday behavior, because the forward movement of Jupiter may appear through small changes in how people approach their plans and decisions. You might notice that your thinking begins to shift from reflection toward action. Ideas that you have been considering quietly may start to feel more possible to pursue. Instead of analyzing them endlessly, you may begin imagining how they could actually develop in real life. This does not necessarily mean immediate, dramatic changes. Often, the first sign of Jupiter moving forward is a subtle return of motivation. You may feel more open to planning ahead. A goal that once seemed distant may begin to feel reachable again. Even small decisions may carry a sense of direction rather than hesitation. Another pattern that may appear today is renewed optimism about situations that previously felt uncertain. When Jupiter's energy begins moving forward, the mind often reconnects with possibility. Problems that once appeared limiting may start to reveal new options or solutions. At the same time, this influence encourages thoughtful expansion rather than impulsive action. Because Jupiter in Cancer emphasizes emotional security, you may feel drawn toward decisions that support long-term stability rather than short-term excitement. The question is not simply how to grow, but how to grow in a way that nurtures your life and the people connected to it. You may also notice people around you discussing future plans more openly. Conversations might turn toward goals, personal development, or ideas about how situations could improve over time. The tone of these discussions often feels more hopeful than it did during the earlier days of reflection. However, forward movement does not erase the value of the insights gained during the retrograde phase. Those insights are meant to guide the direction of your next steps. Instead of rushing into action, today invites you to recognize where momentum is beginning to build naturally. Notice which ideas continue returning to your attention. Notice where your enthusiasm feels steady rather than temporary. Growth becomes sustainable when it grows from understanding rather than urgency. Today marks the beginning of that transition. Now bring this influence into your own experience, sign by sign, not as prediction, but as awareness of how growth may begin moving forward in your life. If you're an Aries, today may encourage you to reconsider the direction of your personal growth. Ideas about your future or your ambitions may begin to feel more actionable. Growth for you lies in choosing opportunities that align with both your enthusiasm and your emotional well-being. If you're a Taurus, reflection around personal beliefs or long-term plans may begin turning into practical direction. Something you have been thinking about for a while may now feel ready to develop further. Growth involves trusting the lessons you learned during your recent period of reflection. If you're a Gemini, social connections and shared goals may bring new perspective. You may notice opportunities to collaborate or contribute in ways that feel more meaningful. Growth lies in recognizing where collective support can strengthen your path. If you're a Cancer, personal identity and emotional foundations may feel connected to a new sense of possibility. You may recognize that certain changes you have been considering are ready to move forward. Growth involves trusting your emotional instincts as part of your decision-making. If you're a Leo, internal reflection may begin transforming into renewed purpose. Insights that developed quietly may now influence how you approach your future direction. Growth lies in allowing understanding to guide your next steps rather than rushing toward visible results. If you're a Virgo, friendships and long-term aspirations may reveal new momentum. Conversations or shared ideas could inspire plans that feel more aligned with your values. Growth involves remaining open to possibilities that develop through collaboration. If you're a Libra, professional ambitions or public goals may begin feeling more attainable. A vision that once seemed distant may start to appear more realistic. Growth lies in balancing optimism with thoughtful preparation. If you're a Scorpio, belief systems and personal philosophies may expand through experience. You may feel encouraged to explore opportunities that broaden your perspective. Growth involves following curiosity while maintaining emotional awareness. If you're a Sagittarius, emotional connections or shared resources may bring insight about how to build stability moving forward. You may recognize where cooperation or trust plays a role in your progress. Growth lies in strengthening those foundations. If you're a Capricorn, relationships may reflect how your personal growth interacts with the growth of others. You may see how certain partnerships support your direction while others require adjustment. Growth lies in honoring connections that encourage mutual development. If you're an Aquarius, daily routines or responsibilities may shift toward greater purpose. You might recognize how small adjustments in your habits can support larger goals. Growth lies in aligning everyday actions with the direction you want to pursue. And if you're a Pisces, creativity and personal expression may feel renewed. Ideas that once lived only in imagination may begin seeking practical form. Growth involves trusting your inspiration enough to allow it to move forward gradually. As we close March 10, take a moment to notice the shift in momentum that may be beginning to appear in your life. Over the past several days, much of the focus has been on reflection, understanding emotional dynamics, revisiting conversations, and interpreting the lessons behind recent experiences. That process was important because it allowed insight to develop before action returned. Today begins the transition out of that reflective phase. When growth has been happening internally, the first sign of change is often subtle. You may notice that certain ideas feel more solid than they did before. A goal that once felt uncertain may begin to feel possible again. Even your attitude toward the future may carry a slightly stronger sense of optimism. This is the nature of forward momentum. It does not always arrive through dramatic events. More often, it appears through renewed clarity about where your energy naturally wants to move. You may find yourself thinking less about what went wrong and more about what could improve. Instead of analyzing past experiences repeatedly, your attention may begin turning toward what you want to build next. That shift in focus is a sign that understanding has begun transforming into direction. Tonight, it may help to ask yourself a few simple questions. What insight from the past few weeks feels most valuable now? How might that understanding influence the choices I make moving forward? And what kind of growth actually supports my emotional well-being rather than just external progress? These questions help transform reflection into meaningful movement. Growth becomes most powerful when it is guided by awareness rather than urgency. You do not need to rush forward all at once. Allow your next steps to develop naturally from the understanding you have already gained. because when momentum returns with clarity, each step tends to lead you towards something that genuinely supports your life, rather than simply moving you forward without purpose.